Shalom, dear friends. On the special night of Hanukkah, we'll continue with the Kitzer, Likutey, Moharan, and do another lesson here. Number 37. Seek Hashem and His might. Dirshu Hashem v'uzo. It says in the Psalms 105, number 4. The main reason for the creation is so that we might recognize Hashem. It says in the Zohar too. As it is written, everything that is called in my name, I created it, I formed it, and I made it all for my honor, as it says in Isaiah 43:7. So Hashem created the entire world. Everything in existence is only so that we should recognize Him. Which means that as you walk about the way, look and appreciate your surroundings, the beauty that Hashem created. When you see that Hashem is connecting you to certain people, certain instances in life, where the bus comes on time, your ride comes on time, thank Hashem, realize that everything's existence is that you should know Him, you should recognize that He is in control and that He is watching over you. The body, as it relates to the soul, corresponds to the aspects of material, animal, foolishness, and darkness. It also corresponds to death, forgetfulness, and secular wisdom versus Torah wisdom. Torah wisdom, on the other hand, is identified with man, as is written, this is the Torah, man. It says in Bamidbar, Numbers 19:14. And it also corresponds to the spiritual form as opposed to the material light, wisdom, memory, and life. Each person must subjugate his material aspect. It is the death-like stupidity of the body, which constitutes the physical desires, such that he separates himself from all these desires. This is accomplished by fasting. By fasting, we weaken the four elements of the body: fire, air, water, and earth. These are the four elements, which are the source of all the physical desires. Okay, if you want to learn more about this, read my book in Kabbalah. I go through details about how each of these four elements relates to us in our life and how our name corresponds to them. Okay, so through fasting, the body's physicality, its foolishness, forgetfulness, and darkness are subjugated and nullified. And the intellect, the spiritual form and the memory then become dominant and rise up. Fasting also nullifies strict judgment and darkness, eliciting an influx of divine loving kindness into the world. The essence of the rectification affected by fasting, however, comes through charity, which is given in conjunction with the fast. Fasting also subjugates secular idealities to Torah wisdom, and through fasting, a person merits a good livelihood. We learned today, this is after Baal Shem, but in general, the Chazal tell us, the sages tell us that we shouldn't undertake fast because our body is not able to handle it. So we shouldn't take on these extra fasts, and we replace these fasts in general with charity. But nonetheless, this was a method of the sages to come close to Hashem, as we see. And it's not just the fasting; it mainly was the charity that went along with the fast, as Rebbe Nachman is saying, that helped to rectify it. And through fasting, a person merits actually to have parnasa, livelihood, as we see. So now there are two types of charity: charity given outside the land of Israel and charity given in the land of Israel. The charity that a person gives to those in the land of Israel is greater and loftier than that given outside the land. Similarly, there are two types of Torah. So, person, if they can give charity, it's very important. Like it first says, you should give into your community, and then you should go and can give outside. But when it comes to giving charity to Israel, this is its own world. It's a very, very great thing. And many people give charity. I have a relative I found out he was a big Baal Tzedakah giving charity, but his own family, he didn't give charity to relatives. So a person should also look into their family and be kind-hearted and take care of other relatives. Just add that note. So similarly, there are two types of Torah. Since the Torah that comes from breath and which is tainted by sin cannot compare to the Torah that comes from breath which is untainted by sin, as it says in the Talmud Shabbos 119. B, this for strict judgments are mitigated and the world is sustained only for the breath of the school children, which is untainted by sin, since by this breath the patriarchs are revealed in the world to protect it. By giving charity to those in the land of Israel, you thereby include yourself in the heir of the land of Israel, which is one and the same thing as a holy breath, which is untainted by sin. Thus, charity that is given to those in the land of Israel is the essential means but for eliminating strict judgment, darkness, forgetfulness, and stupidity from the world. This type of charity also subjugates secular idealities, and a person thereby merits the wisdom of the Holy Torah. Furthermore, a person merits memory, which is a light, as well as the other parallel concepts. So it's so important to not to give charity, but to give charity to Eretz Yisrael, to people living in Israel, that they should be, Eretz Yisrael has some of the largest, poorest people in the world. Sadly, there's so many people struggling to go and give charity. Now let's add something here. Not only when you give charity, if you go and give little bits of many different institutions, and people that are doing kiruv, or people in different yeshivas, and we learned about school children, very important to give to support the kids learning Torah, because the world is sustained through them. And but not only through that, for sustaining these children, which also rectifies these things that the Rebbe Nachman was talking about, but by giving charity to many sources, you become involved. It's as if you are taking a chelek, a part of that person's work. Over the years, I used to get much more funding to do my kiruv work for I Love Torah, and I used to have substantial people, and it's all gone. Very few donations ever come in. And in order to cheer myself up, I realized that, this is a good thing for me personally, because it means people are not taking from some of my chelek. They're not going and taking some of my portion of my reward for my hard work. I'm getting more of it by them not contributing. But if you were to contribute, you would be taking a piece of the whatever hard work this person does, and you would be a part of it as if you're doing it. Therefore, a person, if they work and they're giving and they're very charitable and helping the yeshivas out, it's as if they're learning. So don't underestimate the importance of charity. And we learn in Gemara Tanis that a person, if Hashem says, if five, go and give the charity, and I'll make you wealthy, I'll make you rich. I'm going to double it. I'm going to take care of you. And people are so scared of their money today because of the economy. They have so much trouble to give. And what does Hashem do? We're supposed to emulate God. And what does a God do all day long? He gives and gives and gives. And what happens when the more He gives, we're giving back to Him. So you're going to get it all back. So don't be so scared. You should be scared to not give charity than to worry that you're not going to have money. So this type of charity also subjugates secular ideologies, we learned, and the person thereby merits the wisdom of the Holy Torah through that giving of the charity to people in Eretz Yisrael, to people in Israel. Therefore, each person must seek out and search diligently for an honest and worthy and God-fearing teacher for his children, and beseech God tirelessly for his children's teacher to not corrupt the holy breath of the mouths of the school children, which sustains the world. For due to our many sins, there now exist educational societies that aim to teach little children secular wisdom, which is stupidity and darkness, as well as the language of the Gentiles. These studies defile the holy breath of the mouth of the school children. As we observe empirically, these children sequentially grow up to be atheists, heretics, and the like. Therefore, Rebbe Nachman writes in Likutey halachos, happy is he who keeps himself and his children far away from these people. A person has an absolute obligation to refrain from enrolling his children in any school where even one of the children follows these evil paths and learns secular wisdom and languages, even if a child learns these paths in some other place. It is forbidden to have any connection whatsoever with these people. So the Rebbe is speaking very strongly about what we teach the children, because the Talmud says the whole world's sustained for the study of the Torah, for the purity of the children and their study. That's what sustains the world. Otherwise, the world would be destroyed. It would be just completely gone. It's only through this untainted words of Torah. Okay, so how can we go and put a stumbling block of secular wisdom in front of them? And I'm not talking about math and learning basic things in order to live, but these young children, this is a time for them to excel in the Torah and to not be confused. The secular wisdom, it confuses them, and they start to crave other things. So we have to foremost put the Torah study, and we learning here like you have to pray to God that you should have a worthy Rebbe to go and teach your children. Today, the teachers. It's so shameful. So many people are going into chinuch to teach children, and they have anger problems. They have emotional problems themselves. They have ADD themselves. They can't concentrate, and they're teaching these young children, and they don't belong in the school system. They don't know how to react to them. They take their problems and emotional stress from their house and give it to the children, nebuch, and they're destroying the children. And this has been happening for generations. It's getting only worse and worse and worse. And the children are suffering, and the whole world is sustained by the children. Therefore, the rabbis need to speak out more. They need to get more involved inside the schools, so the children are not hurt and they're untainted, and they're not left confused. How many children, how many teenagers today go for the school system and they're left out? A kid is quiet, he's a little bit different, and therefore he's shunned by his peers. The teacher doesn't pay attention to him. The teacher moves on. When in the old days, if until every child in the class understood the concept, the teacher didn't move on. He didn't go to the next thing. He understood that every child was a great light. Today, it's not like that. You just stand up there like a robot and they teach the children, and then if the child doesn't pay attention, they yell at them instead of figuring out what's wrong with the child. They have to have a personal connection and go into this child's world, go inside their family, call up their parents, make a kesher, invite the child over to the house for a meal, go and see what's going on in his life. But no, they're robotic and the children are suffering. The whole world is sustained for the children, mamish nebach, the school system, and they're judging people, and families are not accepting children into schools because their family isn't perfect according to what they think perfect is. Nebach, Hashem should help us. Don't get me started. So one must be careful to honor an elderly person who has forgotten his learning through no fault of his own. It says in Sanhedrin 96a. For the honor shown to him, his forgetfulness is nullified, and his soul, namely his memory of the Torah, is revealed. Strict judgments, darkness are also nullified in light. Loving kindness, life, and Torah wisdom are drawn into the world. For Hashem's honor is the root of the Torah. For as is written, for my honor I created, it says in Isaiah, and our sages of blessed memory said, there is no honor but Torah, it says in Avos 6:3. This is also a very important concept. People don't give enough respect for the elderly. A person who gets older, he's slower in his mind. Many times he starts to forget things, his short-term memory, long-term memory, and there's just not enough respect for the elderly. A person who's been around longer than you. Okay, I know you think you know everything, but this person has been around an extra 20 years. He's 60, 70, 80 years old. He has so much wisdom. He's like the sweetest apple in the world. You should cherish him. You should cherish every word he says. But instead, we don't give respect. People don't stand up for the elderly. They don't teach their children to respect the elderly. And nebuch, one spouse doesn't show respect in front of the children to the other spouse. How can you go and speak negatively about your spouse in front of the children? And we don't teach our children to honor a woman. She doesn't teach enough to the children to honor the husband who's learning Torah, who's bringing kedusha and holiness into the house through his blessing. There should be no talking. When the husband's saying kiddush, they don't understand how important it is to protect this. And a husband, he doesn't show appreciation for his wife, that she's cooking for Shabbos, she's making meals, she's working hard to clean the house. If each one would switch the other roles, they would appreciate each other more, but there's not enough respect, and that is shown for the children. Therefore, the children don't respect the elderly, they don't respect their teachers, they don't respect each other. Okay, Rebbe Nachman's giving me some bombshells to work with here. Let's see if we get another one. The main cause for a lack of livelihood, which has diminished in recent generations is none other than unworthy ritual slaughterers. Oh, we're going to get started again. Woo! For worthy slaughter, we're talking about shechita and slaughtering the animals, the meat that we eat. Okay. For worthy slaughter feeds and brings sustenance to the Jewish people, and he elevates the reincarnated soul of the animal to the level of a speaking being by pronouncing the blessing over the slaughtering with focused concentration. The slaughterer must concentrate properly on elevating the soul, which is in the blood of the animal, and in this manner, the soul comes out and rises to the divine presence in the aspect of feminine waters. Don't worry, I'm going to get started in a second here. Then the divine presence couples by means of these feminine waters that she possesses, and as a result of this coupling, she receives livelihood for the Jewish people. Therefore, the slaughterer's knife is called mahelet. One second. It's hard to go back and forth between the Hebrew and English. I might be pronouncing that slightly wrong. Okay. That which feeds, as is written, and he took the mahelet. Namely, it says in Bereshit, namely the slaughterer's knife takes its name from the worthy slaughterer who feeds the Jewish people. But when the slaughter is not worthy, and even at the time he is pronouncing the blessing, he is thinking of invalid thoughts, and it is not even there that he recites the blessing, then when he stands with the knife to slaughter the animal, he resembles the murderer of souls. This causes suffering to the animal's soul, which cries out bitterly. For this slaughterer's knife is the sword of the wilderness. It says in Lamentations, it is not Hashem's sword, as says in Isaiah, which is identified with the divine presence and with speech. Since it does not elevate the reincarnated soul within the animal. Most animals that are kosher, all animals, pretty much it says in the Kabbalah, that are kosher have souls, have divine souls inside them. Okay? And I think it's something like half, not exactly half, but something about half of the non-kosher animals also have souls. So therefore, it's very important to it's very important to treat the animals properly, and we'll see also to slaughter them properly. So we're going to get into that in a second. To the contrary, such an unworthy slaughter actually brings the soul down from its level, the level of the animalistic being, and that soul then has no resting place or sanctuary. Woe to a slaughterer such as this! Woe to the soul that has killed a soul and handed over to its enemies. And thus the divine presence has no feminine waters by which to bring home sustenance. Then we bring home our bread at the peril of our lives because of the sword of the wilderness. It says in Lamentations. In other words, with enormous toil and effort. God forbid we must eke out our meager livelihood because of this. All because of the slaughterer's knife, which is called the sword of the wilderness. We'll go back, let's finish the concept, and then we're going to go and hit it outside. As a result of these unworthy slaughterers, the soul is subordinated to the body and to the material. The physical desires grow stronger in the material aspect. Conversely, worthy slaughterers cause the soul to become ascendant and subordinate to the body and the material, which correspond to the animal, foolishness, and secular wisdom, the soul, the spiritual form, all which correspond to Torah wisdom, then ascend and livelihood flows in great abundance. This is the explanation of the verse, he gives prey teref to those who fear him. It says in Psalms, teref connotes bread or substance, as in provide me hatri feni, with bread. It says in Proverbs 30 and then 8. And it also is related to the word trefa, unkosher meat. In other words, the double meaning of this word alludes to the idea that when the Jewish people guard themselves from unkosher meat, they will consequently enjoy beautiful bounty. Okay, let's go now and explain this a little bit. So, people complain about livelihood. Why is livelihood worse today, more difficult than it used to be, where people seem to have their basic needs? And today people are on government assistance, and they're struggling, and they don't know where things are coming. But in the old days, they used to see a lot more nisim and things just working out with livelihood. Why? Because of shechita, because of the slaughtering of the animals not done properly. Okay? Today, we all want kosher meat. We know we already spending double maybe on kosher meat in order to keep kosher. But maybe that's not enough. It would be better that we ate less meat and spent triple on the meat, And we told the slaughterhouses in the Aksharm that we want to, all the chumras, all the extra stringency when it comes to slaughtering, because that's going to give us a livelihood. We're going to get that if we pay one. If you have a choice between bedats meat and you have a choice between a smaller hechsher that doesn't have the chumras, the stringencies of the meat, pick the bedats. Spend that extra third of your money because you're going to get it back in your livelihood. Okay, because people are not shechting the animals properly. They're in the slaughterhouses in America. Is some of sometimes each shochet slaughter, it has hundreds of animals that he's slaughtering in a day. Okay, and this is not supposed to be a chain. It's not supposed to be a chain that goes on and on and on and on and on. It's not supposed to be like that. These are holy souls in the animals. And I know a lot of you worry about how they're treated, and I'm also including that. These are holy souls in the animals. They have to be treated properly. This shchita that the meat that we're eating, we're elevating souls here. This isn't a rolling chain where you have to go and slaughter as fast as possible to go and make enough money to keep the price down. Okay, people are paying double. Okay, be willing to pay triple, 4 times in order to go and have a proper shchita. So here in Israel the other week I spoke to a shochet. He said he went to America. For one day he was going to go and see if he was going to do the shechita with one of the companies. He didn't want to tell me which one, so I'll let you imagine which one it is. He said he quit the same day because he couldn't believe how low the standard was of the shechita, the shechting of the animals, the meat for the Jewish people. And I spoke to him about the ones in Israel. He told me that the bedats, he said, keep the oldest chumras that they've been doing, the stringencies, when they're slaughtering the animals that they've had for the last 100 years. He said they're taking 20 minutes. The person slaughters the animals for 20 minutes, taking his time. And then after that 20 minutes, he then watches the next guy who was watching him. Okay, they switch off. And then they get a 20-minute break. So he's only slaughtering for 20 minutes of a whole hour. Okay? And besides that, they're doing all the extra stringencies and make sure the slaughtering is done properly with checking the knives and all the stringencies of the knife. Okay, now this is what we need to be doing, and not making this, and taking this serious. So if we go and we work on the slaughtering of the animals, we're treating the animals properly also in the process, we're going to see our livelihood improving. And I know people, there's many people that don't keep kosher because they say it's too expensive. So I can understand that aspect. But we who know better have to do better. And so therefore, from my understanding, from when I looked into this, the hackers shechita in slaughterhousing in Jerusalem is one of the highest standards, and bedats Eda Achredus keeps the highest standard when it comes to this in the old traditions, and you have to check more deeply into your local ones. But I could tell you'd probably be disappointed a little bit if you checked into it. So we have to do better with this, and then we're going to see our livelihood returning, and these souls of the animals are going to be elevated through this more attention. So I'm willing to pay more for my meat. Are you? Let's do this right. And it goes for all things that we eat. We need to give kavod for the food. I was once staying by a friend's house, and he told me, I came home with packages from the supermarket, and I put it on the floor. He says, "How can you put this on the floor?" He says, "My wife, she's the daughter of one of the great Moroccan rabbis." He said, never did her father ever put food on the floor, her mother. Never put food on the floor. The food, we give respect for the food. It's coming down from heaven. These are sparks that have to be elevated. The vegetables, according to the Kabbalah, the vegetables have even a higher rectification. We have to respect the food. People are throwing out food left and right. We have to go and cherish this blessing that we have, that we can eat. And we're going to see our livelihood improving by having a better understanding in these aspects. This is the explanation of the injunction: be mindful of the sons of the ignorant, meaning honor them, because Torah is destined to emerge from them. It says in Sanhedrin 96a. To explain, it is known that the noble souls are trapped within the impure force of Noga, the interface between holiness and the three entirely evil forces of impurity. Now the evil force of Noga wants the soul to become entrenched there, so it plants the soul in the seminal drop of the ignorant man in order that the soul should become sullied as much as possible. Thus the sons of ignorant are very precious souls, but they are like birds caught in a trap, it says in Salites, in Eicha. And how do we know the preciousness and beauty of these souls? Hold on, this is going to be a great one. Only through their Torah wisdom. Namely, when we see that they grow up to become Torah scholars. We know that they have precious souls indeed. Therefore, a person must be careful to honor these children, because through this honor, the Torah that is hidden within them will be more fully revealed. The reason is that the root of everything is the honor of Hashem. As is written, for my honor I created it. It says in Isaiah, and the soul, which is the Torah, yearns to be included back in its root, which is honor, through the honor of these children receive. The Torah emerges from them, and the soul, the spiritual form, loving kindness, all become ascendant. Then the physical desires, the material aspect are cast off, and the strict judgments are nullified. Amen. May it be His will. My friends, you know what we're hearing here? The children. When a holy soul needs to come down into this world, the Satan, he's fighting. He's saying, no, don't bring it down. They're not worthy. And Hashem's coming back and saying, you know what? Okay, I'm going to send this soul to this family that is not so religious, or Bali to a family that's struggling in their spirituality. And so inside is this holy soul of this child. And the child grows up. The family comes to the local cheder. Wow, I'm really going after everything today. The family goes to the local cheder rabbi, and they say, we want to enroll our child into Jewish education. And then they're told, but look at you don't meet our standards. And they, bye-bye. Or you don't have money to pay us. Bye-bye. The child ended up in secular, even public school, God forbid. Years later, that child finds his way back to Hashem because he's got a holy spark, right? This was a holy spark that had to come down. And instead of going to the righteous family, it actually went to the family that was struggling. Sometimes it even goes to a non-Jewish family, and that child is a convert. And these children are not given the respect. And we see if their child was given the respect, this would elevate and rectify so many things in the world. But mamash, the children, the cheders, where is the respect for the children? The whole world is sustained for the Torah of the children, not through the people that think they're better than everyone else. Wow. So to summarize this lesson, we spoke about the whole world came about because Hashem wanted to share His glory with us. And we spoke about the 4 elements that a person has to overcome. The elements we have, they have both positive and negative traits. And to break those traits, a person would take upon themselves to fast. And besides fasting, what breaks the traits is charity, and specifically charity given to the land of Israel. And then we spoke about helping the children, and the Torah, their breath, which is so pure because it's untainted by sin, and that we have to sustain the children. And then we spoke about Nebuch, how Jewish souls are not always given the respect that they need, because people think that they're better than everyone else. And we don't, the schools, mamish, the people are being rebbes, teaching the children, and they're unworthy of such a thing. They have no respect for the children. They don't appreciate their job and what their responsibility is with these children. And then we spoke about honoring the elderly. Wow, what a lesson today. We spoke about livelihood, how our livelihood depends upon the slaughtering of the animals and the meat. We have to go and spend the extra money, get the best meat, shechita we can get. And also, should say the blessing over the food properly, and that's going to elevate these souls. There's sparks within all the food that we eat. And I'll say this, add this thing to it. All the person's sins in their life, all their difficulty comes from their eating habits. All the evil inclination, all that power that it has to go and fight you in your life, all of it comes from you not saying blessings properly, by you not adhering to the laws of kashrus, of keeping kosher to the extent that you really should. All that negativity, all that confusion in the mind, it all is coming from the food. If you say your blessings before and after you eat, and afterwards is deraisa, min Torah, if you say those blessings properly, then the food, and you eat the food properly, slowly, you're giving it respect. Then you're going to see those sparks being elevated, and your mind is going to expand. You're going to be healthier. And your attitude, both physically and spiritually. We don't take care of our bodies. We eat food like it's a joke. We don't have any respect for this greatness, thanking God for what He's giving us. We're supposed to be eating at a table, because the table is considered the mizbeach, is part of the temple today. It replaces the mizbeach that we used to slaughter the animals on. Is our own table in our house, but we'll eat anywhere that's comfortable. We're supposed to sit down, and while we're eating, we're supposed to learn Torah. A few minutes of Torah every time we eat. How many times we forget to say the blessing? And we see that the children, if we cherish them, if we nourish them with what they need, then they're going to grow up to be Torah scholars. It says in the Talmud that if you go and you spend the money on your child's education, and we're not talking about him going to college, you go and you spend money on his education, you're going to get it all back. It's one of those things that you get back. You get back whatever you spend for the Holy Shabbos, whatever money you spend in honor of Shabbos. That's why a person who buys food even Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, he says, I'm buying this Likutey Shabbos. Even if it's maybe you'll eat it before Shabbos, but still to have that mindset where you're buying Likutey Shabbos and sake of the Shabbos, you're going to get that money back. It's not included in your livelihood. Every Rosh Hashanah we're judged on how much money we're going to have for the whole year. But two things, actually three, but I forget what the third one is. The second, but Shabbos we're going to get extra back. So whatever you spend on Shabbos, don't worry about the bill. Okay, and then our child's education. That also don't worry about the bill. God is going to take care of that bill. So go and find the best education for your child and nourish them, cherish them. Make sure they're getting the help they need in school, which probably they're not, because the rabbis need to step forward. They need to go and get inside those schools, and they need to weed out all those teachers that are unworthy of this responsibility that upholds the entire world, the children's Torah study. And we need to change the system. I wish I had more power in this to do. All my children suffer tremendously in the school systems. I can go in there, I tear the whole system up, and what can I do? They're switching schools so many times because of it. So many. I don't even know where to go with such a thing, and I'm sure all of you also struggle. Right, the table is compared to the altar in the temple that we eat at. It's like we're slaughtering and giving a carbon to God when we eat at the table. Thank you so much. Now I need to cheer up. This was a hard lesson to give over. Rebbe Nachman gave me these points that I could go and expand upon. And homeschool is a big problem, because homeschool means the child doesn't learn how to socialize properly in many cases. And usually the parents neglect to do the homeschooling properly. I have yet to seen a child that was homeschooled that either turned out to the expectations that I would hope. So I don't think that's necessarily the answer in most cases. But a few years from now, the way things are going, that might be some of the only answer for many people. But I personally am not recommending that. I recommend we fix the system as best we can, and we are on top of what's going on in the schools, and that we, I don't know. I'll have to pray on this so much. Thank you so much for your words. I want to sing a song on Hanukkah, but I'm all. I have nothing left after discussing these topics. It's wonderful to learn such a thing where we first spoke about how we have to give respect for the elderly, and we don't do that enough, and how important that is. And then we spoke about in the same right afterwards giving respect to the children, and I think it's so important, these both aspects. Wonderful Torah lesson. Let's cherish both the elderly, both and the children. Let's nourish both, because the world is sustained by the elderly and their wisdom and their guidance, and it's sustained by the children and their pureness. And may we nurture that and give it all our energy, and may the rabbis of the world and open their eyes and see this problem and start to fix it as is necessary. Shalom, shalom, a good Hanukkah.